Okay, so we are live and on air. I am Greg Bem, and I am with the fabulous poet and writer and performer and organizer of many things in Seattle, Washington, Mr. Graham Isaac. Thanks for being here, Graham.
Thanks for having me.
So essentially what this is it's the second reading in 4 readings of the Citydrift Portland event. The reading series of this event is called Drifting from Washington. But the greater event as a whole is called Citydrift, Citydrift Portland. It's in Portland, Maine. The previous locations for the event include Detroit and Bushwick, Brooklyn. I'm just going to read a very general description about the event in case people are live streaming or listen to this before the event is over or want to know for archival purposes. Essentially, it's a 3-day meta event that takes place throughout the entire city of Portland, Maine. Today, the 19th, tomorrow, the 20th, and Sunday, the 21st. The event is featured over a 72-hour period. It experiences these 3 days of drifts and simultaneous creation and installation of drift documentation or ephemera, including panel discussions at the Citydrift and Portland hubs, which include this venue, Zero Station, on Anderson Street in Portland, in the Bayside neighborhood, as well as Space Gallery and Space Gallery's Annex, which are both downtown on Congress Street.
Okay.
In addition to exhibitions, we've got artists from the Portland area and beyond, including Washington State, Philadelphia, Providence, Austin, Cambodia, and then we also have performers, poets, musicians, painters, printers, dancers, writers, gallerists, curators, including myself, choreographers, and more. But most importantly is the element of the public, and this entire event has been structured under certain aesthetic principles aligned with people like the Situationists, who believe in incorporating the public beyond the performance and beyond the spectacle. So attempting to get an environment shaped rather than creating art or specifically sharing art. So it's more about having what we have been labeling things as drifts or encounters with the environment. And this is just one instance of many that have been going on today and will continue to go on through the evening and for the next 2 days. So,
awesome.
with all that said, this is a really cool event, and I'm really happy for Washington writers, including myself. I'm visiting from Seattle, to share their creativity and their influence on the environment through a digital and distanced or remote or whatever you want to call it medium. And in this case, it's a Google Hangout. Graham Isaac and I are not strangers to this environment, which is one of the reasons why I really wanted to invite you, Graham. Just a little background on Graham. He is known to be in many places in Seattle at once. He is known to write and profess many statements about and on Seattle, and yet not about and on Seattle at the same time. And Graham, you also help run with your girlfriend Rachel Hug, the Claustrophobia series. You have inspired many other things, including the Agoraphobia series. You have volunteered your time and efforts for the Richard Hugo House, as well as Da De Doll, which is another performance series going on in Seattle, and a variety of other things. Anyone that is anyone in Seattle knows your name, including me. I today feel like I am an anyone, and I'm happy to have you here. Thank you for being here. I'm going to ask you a few questions before you read some things, unless you have some questions about the event for me first.
No, I'm just happy to be here.
Cool. Well, cheers. Thanks for coming to your computer.
I'm
so
in a basement right now of a coffee shop. Fortunately, there's only one other person in the whole basement, so.
And after they hear you read, there will be no other people.
Yep.
Even if you are that one person, uh, you will jump ship as well, I'm sure. So I basically, in the spirit of the nature of this event, I didn't want to just bring people on board to read their stuff and get out of here, lacking the context. And instead, I created some prompts or some questions that I shared with you ahead of time, and
Mhm.
hope that you will answer them. I know you will answer them faithfully, and hopefully they will provide some additional insight into how the creativity and the influence on the environment, as well as just general communication in this day and age, goes down. So, first, I guess this ultra broad question: where are you from, and where have you gone?
Well, I'm from Seattle and the northern suburbs thereof. I'm from the specific weather patterns that inform the Northwest. I'm from faith and from questioning of that faith, and I'm from a lot of uh, a lot of dark rooms. Uh, I've been to a lot of places that I think echo those things. Like I lived for a couple years in the UK, and many people commented that didn't seem like too much of a stretch for me. So
Nice. And so, how do these experiences of space and the environment, how do they shape what you do and who you are and how you write?
I think uh, there's a lot of conscious shaping where I will try to bring in my experiences, my environment, try and speak to the places or about the places I've been, both physically and I guess mentally. But there's also sometimes I think it can come through strongest when I'm not actually trying. It's like you write something and you find, oh, wait, this is totally about that one house I lived in for
Mhm.
3 months, and I wasn't even trying to go there. So I think it's equal parts subconscious and conscious, with me at least, and I'm always trying to walk that line between the sort of imagination and the factual relation of an experience in my writing. And then in terms of what I do, uh, that's a that's huge. That's a huge question and probably a longer answer than we have time for, I think.
So that's really interesting. Obviously, I know that your writing relates to the imaginary and the reality that you live, and a lot of your writing features characters that exist in environments that are familiar and intimate to the people that live in them in actuality, but at the same time, they embody a certain degree of heightened visceral experience that obviously I think you're transferring into your writing. But with the imagination, and with this event in particular, we're talking
Mm-hmm.
about Maine. And correct me
Mm-hmm.
if I'm wrong, but I don't think that you've ever actually been here. And
I've been to Maine, but I've never been to Portland.
okay,
Um,
so that's interesting. So yeah, what do you think about Maine? What do you know about Maine, or what would you say your experience is with visiting Maine, or the potential to visit Maine through this dialogue right now and beyond?
there's a picture of me from when I was 20 years old on a road trip with my dad up the East Coast. I had a ponytail and I wore this same Les Schwab jacket all the time that my friend had given me. And I'm standing on a rock and there are these waves behind me and it's like by a lighthouse. I forget which lighthouse. And that picture was taken in Maine. And for a long time, it was one of the handful of pictures I had on my wall. Um, Maine represented a sort of familiar other when I visited it. New England in general and Maine specifically felt the most like home away, you know.
Hmm.
Partly because of the landscape and the weather patterns and whatnot. it all seemed a lot more, I guess, taken care of than the Northwest has been or was at the time. Um, but my experience of Maine was not an urban experience. It was to an extent a tourist experience and to an extent a sort of open road experience, and it was
Hmm.
very comfortable.
And so, in that degree, that was one of many places you visited. What
Hmm.
do you, how do you define travel, and how do you define your life and your ability to interpret and then funnel that travel into new creativity?
I think when you travel, you have to keep your eyes open, but you also have to realize the limit to what you're going to be able to observe in such a short amount of time. You have to be okay occasionally with taking part in systems that annoy you in your hometown. You go to the place that the manual says in the hotel because that's the place you know to go to and learn about a spot. And then sometimes you can transcend that, or you can find other ways. But I think when you travel, you're still seeing things you haven't seen before. Even if you haven't aren't then qualified to talk about the place. And this is something I've been thinking about a lot lately. You're still having an experience that many people have had before, but you yourself haven't. And the headspace you're in, the headspace of the people around you, and things like the weather and the political climate or the environment, both of this place specifically and of the world,
Hmm.
is going to affect what you
Cool.
see, how you look at things. I think it's different to visit, say, coastal seaside town in a time of peace than, say, when a nation has just announced renewed war efforts. What you see when you look across the water, uh, the things that you think about on the other side of that water are going to be different. Like I think that travel can bring out some of these realizations that staying incubated in the same sort of space all the time can't.
Hmm. So, with that in mind, with the incubation in particular, we have
Mm-hmm.
you who writes a lot of very relatively short pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Your work collected might be epic in nature in that it's all related to itself and it's all related to the environments and the spaces and the interpretations of spaces that you've encountered.
Mm-hmm.
But they're also all like small incubations of
Yeah.
thought, and singular experiences. And so I guess instead of asking you more of the pre-generated questions that are on this email template, I'd love to actually hear you read some of your poetry.
All right.
Um, with that in mind, if you do have any comments as you read about any of these topics or subjects, don't feel like you have to just skip through the writing if you want to engage with the material a little bit more.
Okay. Well, I'll introduce the piece I have this way. It's a combination of a few pieces that I had been working on or already written with newly written material for this event. Thinking about some of the parallels between, I guess, the the northwest, and the northeast, and some of my experiences and things that I've heard. So uh, it's going to register as one long piece, and I will start now. A young man stands on a rock, staring out. When I am old and full of wisdom, he says, when I am full of wisdom and I can tell these stories and have the people listen. Up the coast. When I say up the coast, Up the coast. Could be the rite, the ritual, the father-son trip in the months preceding first full-time job, the year preceding home departures. Maine, furthest in miles, seemed closest to. Bottles against brick sidewalks. Humor as escape. Sliced open. Bean cans. Benches aflame and shattered junior high windows. A town, a pharmacy, a downtown, a parking lot, a difficulty to tell. We stopped along the coast a few times. Visited Dad's friends in a town I can't remember the name of. She ran the theater program at the high school. And her sons made a few jokes at the expense of Portland, people living in the big city, like folks in Yelm talking about the gray, they'll say, and the concrete and the needled stones and the bullet-holed windows, they say. The running you have to do around corners, they say, in the rain, in the rustling green, labyrinths, dredged, return, dragged lakes, trimmed hedges, sink, swim, repeat. How did we get here? There is no such thing as a white American, no such thing as a happy poem, connections that refuse to sever. My ancestors with picks and shovels digging their way through the earth, dragging sails with axes and guns in clearings by the coast. In the sides of mountains, power line hollowed valleys and mossed out hills, in gray concrete row homes, in potholes, in the green, in the fog that uncurls off the lighthouse, the glass and cliff. Tell me anywhere could be seaside. Tell me anywhere could be taken from me. Ply me with craft beer and send in the bulldozers. My new neighborhood, Ivy Amps, built gyros, shining water bricks, coils, plugs and wires, Ivy. No such thing as a carefree intellectual, and here there is no such thing as a quiet band. This is where we said we'd be. I hear the place I'd go is not the place I'd learn of. I hear the place I'd find is not the place I looked for. There are the hints, the culture, now logos on a tote bag, artisanal crafts, the shadows of the buildings, the crashings of the sea. There's a lot to hollow out. A man, years later, graying but suave, calm but swaggered, conducting his TED Talk about the soul. He drinks a glass of water. When I was young and full of hope, he muses, but doesn't finish. That is my poem. And it was trying, I think, to get at some of the issues that tend to face people who grow attached to a place and find it changed in ways, but still there's always that undercurrent of sameness as well.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel a particular joy in the possibility of coming back here, and would that create some kind of resolution or provide additional insight into where you're currently exploring?
I think it would provide additional insight. I don't know about resolution because I'm not sure what there would be to resolve. In some ways, the resolution would simply be continuing to learn and reconnect with a place as a living, active place with people as opposed to a picture on the wall. And I think that that's another element of travel, is that for a lot of people, places become a single memory and they don't think about the vastness and complexity that is contained in a social human ecosystem of a city, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a coast or a skyline or a particular tower or a really great plate of nachos or something, you know? The time we went to the brewery. Can I have one of those beers?
They all blend together those times, but don't at
Yep.
the same time. Hmm. So, thank you for sharing the poetry,
Yeah.
and I hope that I hope that you'll be able to engage with some of the other artists that are out here, particularly the ones that you know already, the writers who are that are that are contributing to to Portland from Seattle, but also those that are not, such as
Yeah.
tomorrow. Mark Anderson is going to be contributing some writing, and he's in
Nice.
Spokane, and
When
a
when
couple other. What's that?
when will that be?
That is tomorrow at 11 or 8 a.m. your time, so you might actually be not awake, but
I
it'll be
might not.
recorded. But anyway, the point is, these are really good dialogues to have, and they're strong dialogues as I move around and travel and see a lot of things, just as you have, and a lot of people have in various capacities to various extents. How not only how we deal with our lives in the moment of that traveling experience, the almost romantic or honeymoon-ish kind of phase of exploration and insight, but also how we put these patterns and how we put these pieces of the potential contribution together, and how we see where our travel as a whole, as a bigger thing,
Hmm.
comes together and shapes us. Fortunately, I think that City Drift and other similar events can afford us a space and a lot of time for us to create certain reflections and to investigate a little bit more. But I don't know. I look forward to having more conversations with you in the future, and I hope other people will as well.
Definitely. Yeah. I think it's really important, and I think it's important not just to travel, but to revisit both the places that you've been, if you can, and also revisit the travels with new perspectives. Sometimes that's something I appreciated about this event was it actually got me thinking back about that trip again, and about like how would I experience that differently if I were doing that now, and also would I be experiencing the same sort of place now, uh, years on. So
Hmm.
I think these are important dialogues.
Yeah. Until you die and you wake up and it's like you get to live it again or something, and you realize you're in a computer game or some kind of
Yeah,
prefabricated existence. But
and
until
you're
that proof,
like, I just want the one up pizza. I
exactly.
choose to believe that if life is a computer game, it's a Ninja Turtles computer game with lots of pizza and
Well said.
and
On that note, thanks again, Graham. Graham, before I let you go and we drift along into wherever we're headed, do you have any for the folks out here that are growing in number in terms of the audience, as well as the people online or person online and potential people that listen to the recording? Do you have anything that's coming up, or any future statements to share with folks?
I would encourage those in Seattle or visiting Seattle shortly to check out both the upcoming Dot A Doll event, at which you will be part of, at the Fremont Abbey. Um, and we should be hopefully getting video of that and posting that online shortly after. And then I think you can follow my blog at somewhereincolorado.blogspot.com. All the usual social media suspects uh, are good ways to know about more things that I'm involved in or that I'm trying to tell other people about, whether I'm involved in or not.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks, Greg.
Does anybody else have anything to comment or any? Do you have any one person? This person, Nicole is her name. She wants to know if you have another piece to share before we say goodbye.
I could do one more brief one. This is not directly related, but in some ways it kind of is. It's called crashing and brackish. The town's still flooded, tendons unspooled, across the arterials, your arms finally. In the manual, we are the wires. In the manual, we are the charge. Your legs deregulate across from Union Station, and the armies of neighboring cities rally in mortar against the grating. In the post-report, we are collateral. In the post-report, we are tar. Chips and brick that look like faces. Hire a stronger crane, girders for monuments, rebar impalements, and salt and Norway rats running down the ropes. I carry my entrails calmly, though this is not how it was supposed to go.
Great. Thank you, Graham. Graham Isaac is in Seattle, and he is contributing to Citydrift Portland, Citydrift 2014. For those who are listening to this live or will be before the event is over, Citydrift is running from the 19th through 21st in Portland, Maine, and you can check out all the details at citydrift.org. Graham, have a great afternoon and evening, and I will see you soon, and hopefully others will see you soon as well.
All right. Talk to you soon. Thanks, Grace.